Welcome to Beyond the Lab, a series by the Office of Career Development within the Biomedical Research, Education, and Training Department of the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. My name is Kate Stewart, and I'm here today with Margaret Read, who was a graduate in the 1990s, we agreed to say, in the Department of Pathology. So welcome. Thanks for coming today to talk about your path. Oh, and that you did a short postdoc as well. Tell me about what you did here at Vanderbilt when you were here, and then maybe some career highlights to where you are now.
Okay, so I did my graduate work here at Vanderbilt, as you said, in the pathology department. My mentor was Dr. Barbara Merrick, and Barbara had a joint appointment in pathology and pulmonary medicine. And we were interested in studying the mechanisms of lung damage during sepsis, and our focus was on lymphocytes that accumulate in the lung. And so I studied mechanisms of lymphocyte recruitment, adhesion, and migration. We did a lot of electron microscopy, and it was a lot of fun. It really was. And I enjoyed it a lot because we were associated with the Department of Medicine, and I got a lot of exposure to physicians who were treating patients who had the types of things that we were studying, and it was really, really a wonderful experience.
Okay, and so what about after that?
And after that, I did a short postdoc with Dr. Jacek Haviger in the Department of Microbiology, and I continued working on endothelial activation in Jacek's group. And after working with Jacek, I decided I was ready to move beyond Nashville because I'd grown up in Tennessee and it was time to have an experience somewhere else. And at a conference, a Keystone conference, I met an investigator from Boston, and we had a lot of common interest, and he suggested I come and talk to him about considering moving up to his lab. And so I went and interviewed at the Division of Vascular Research, Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, and decided to go and work for Dr. Tucker Collins in that division. And I had an instructor position there, and I got to tutor in the medical school in their pathology course, which was really fun, and then continue my work on endothelial activation in Tucker's lab.
Okay, so what do you do now?
So what do I do now? I do something very different now, and I've done a lot of different things in between, but now I lead an alliance between Vanderbilt and Deerfield Management called Ancora Innovation, and my title is General Manager of Corporate Alliances.
Okay, so what does that mean? What do you do, like when you walk into your office?
Yeah, so
what's
my
next?
Role is really coordinating everything that has to happen in that alliance, and it goes all the way from governance to execution. We have a joint operations committee that's made up of 3 members from Deerfield and 3 members from Vanderbilt, and I lead that joint operations committee and keep them on track, doing what we need to do to make decisions about which projects to bring into the collaboration. That's a big part of it. I work very closely with them to help them engage with faculty at Vanderbilt and generate interest in projects at Vanderbilt that have therapeutic potential, to try and bring those before Deerfield and get their attention. And then on the execution side, I work very closely with the principal investigators and the teams that run these projects. And I ensure that they have what they need. I report back to the Joint Operations Committee, but I also work very closely with a different arm of Deerfield led by Dr. Mike Foley, who heads really the research and development through Deerfield Management.
Okay, so you have to have quite a bit of skills and interest to be in this job. What do you think makes you a good fit for the role that you're in?
I think the best thing that makes me a good fit is my experience, because I started out in the lab and loved science. I've always loved science, and I still do. And when we talk about jobs in the lab, jobs not in the lab, it never seemed to be a black and white thing for me. You're in the lab or you're not. I'm a scientist, and lab work is a big part of that, but there's a lot more to it than that. And I was very interested in working on science that had translational potential. And I learned very early on that good science isn't enough to make a drug. It's the beginning, it's where you start, but there's a lot more to it. And so really in my career working in the biotechnology and pharma space, I learned the business of science and what it takes to get a drug to market.
Okay, so you've seen some trends as you have gone through different things. What are the things that you are noticing now that maybe graduate students and postdocs would need to know as they pursue their career?
Well, I think the best advice I can give graduate students and postdocs is to really go beyond where you're comfortable. And I said science isn't enough. Science is important, but you need to very early on expose yourself to people who are in different areas of our industry. And you do that by joining organizations, you do it by attending conferences that maybe aren't the ones you would normally think you should go to, or going to sessions that are focused on areas outside of where you're directly interested. Learning more about the regulatory environment, I think, is really important. And developing your skills beyond your technical skills. I think that's really critical. We talk about some of those as being soft skills. I don't like that term because they're just as important as the rest of our technical skills.
Okay.
I think technical writing is a really important part of that. For me, getting to work on projects that were moving into the clinic, writing for the FDA, was really the culmination of everything I wanted to do as a scientist, was to justify why I should take this hypothesis and test it in the clinic.
Okay. So you have probably used networking to get you along in your career in different spaces that you've gone to. What are some of the strategies that you personally have employed to really get to know people and to network?
Yeah, I think looking for organizations. When I was in Boston, I was a member of several organizations. One of them was called the Healthcare Business Women's Association, and it had as many PhDs as MBAs in it. And it wasn't about women, it was about leadership and developing your leadership skills. And I think being in that environment and being exposed to people that worked in a lot of different areas of the business helped me a lot. And just being comfortable talking with them and learning about what they did. And I participated a lot in mentoring in that program. I was mentored by people, but I also was a mentor myself.
Okay.
And that was a really great experience.
Tell me about how you would foster a relationship like that, with, someone that you see as who you would like for them to be your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to foster that relationship?
I think some advice that I was given early on was, don't go and ask someone, will you be my mentor? Go and ask someone a question that you're curious about what they do, and get to know them that way. And if the mentoring flows from that, so be it. If it doesn't, continue until you find someone who has that kind of interest in doing that for you. And I think some of my best mentors were not my managers. They were often people in other divisions, other departments, who had nothing to do with what I was doing, but they often needed my help, and I would see the opportunity and I would step up and volunteer to do things that were outside of my area of expertise.
Okay.
Those kinds of things, including when we were doing regulatory work at my company, I loved working with our regulatory leaders and reading the documents they were putting together and helping them write them. And sometimes I would do that in my own time because I wanted the experience, and it turned out to be so valuable.
So you're now in a position where you might be hiring or looking to, hire PhD students or postdocs, or at least, when they're along in their career. What are some of the things that you look for that would be a good hire? Some of the traits that you see that would let you know that you would want to have them on your team.
Yeah, I think communication skills are key. Being able to communicate your science to broad audiences, not just technical audiences. I mean, being able to talk to patients, clinicians, people who are in the media, people who are investors. Being able to communicate broadly about the importance of your science is very important. And then I think the second piece is people who are genuinely curious and how things work and how things happen.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you.
You're so welcome.